want to begin by talking to you about the issue of housing affordability, and we're going to ask a few questions to start us off. If you will, raise your hand if you rent your home. Okay, we've got a few. And now raise your hand if you own your home. And keep those hands raised if you view this home as an investment. All right, well, that is a common answer we will be touching on tonight. We are also going to be looking at housing affordability, how I came to personally understand it, and a bit about where we are today as a city. I want to offer you something you can leave with tonight, a way that you can help Greenville take its next big step forward. And I want you to leave and ask why. Why does where you live affect you as well as your broader community? And why are homes an economic and a moral imperative? And what does that have to do with views from rooftop bars, as well as the views from those and also those who work there? And how can we move as a community to say, yes, in my backyard? Well, last fall, 87% took a survey and agreed that Greenville has a housing affordability issue. 81% said that is getting worse in our city. I joined the Affordable Housing Steering Committee thinking I already understood the problem, but I had to ask myself, did I? Because it's very complex and complicated. There are, as Russell mentioned, these interconnected dynamics of race and class and wealth and crime and poverty. And often that becomes extremely difficult to discuss when it's viewed in relationship to something we know might be our largest investment. So let's begin tonight by looking at what stood out on our city when our consultant analyzed it. What stood out is that two aspects. The first is our rents for our low-cost units have risen dramatically over the last 15 years in relationship to incomes. Today we face a gap of 2,500 units now as a city that are affordable. And that means that these are for people earning $20,000 or less in our city. And as recently as 10 years ago, we had a surplus of some 800 units that were affordable to low-income workers. The second aspect is that our units in Greenville are geographically concentrated. And that means generally these are not located near jobs. We will be touching on this point later, so we'll be coming back to that when we talk about our special emphasis neighborhoods. Now, when you drive around, we do see a lot of development in Greenville. There have been around 5,000 new units come onto our market in the city. The majority of those are upper to high end. So what I came to understand is that our new economy has made us very top heavy, but also very bottom heavy, and this gap is widening. And I did not like hearing it was going to take us 20 years to solve this problem and that it would cost $220 million if we had the money today. So Greenville has done a lot. We've done so much so well as a city. I moved here in 1992. I was a graduate in NC State at the time, and it was, when I was at NC State, a great time to watch basketball, unlike this season. It was still the Jimmy V years, and I came to Greenville, and over time I really have come to appreciate that cheering for Clemson football can be fun as well. So in 1992 I looked at a condo downtown, and it was too expensive for my income, so I ended up renting an apartment off of East North Street. And I picked this particular one because my employer, who I was coming to work for, that apartment complex, offered me a discount. And I thought that was pretty great because I had some new things like a car payment, and I was also living on my own for the first time. So when we think about the issue of housing affordability, it is simple. It is housing that is affordable no matter who we are talking about. And to be affordable, that means you're paying 30% of your gross monthly income. Anything above that means it's difficult for a family to pay for things like transportation, quality child care, nutritious food, good health care, or even medicine. Now, Matthew Desmond tells us in his book that's called Evicted, Poverty and Profit in the American City, and he will be in Greenville on April the 20th, that we have 11 million people in our city now who are incredibly rent burdened. And that means often they are paying up to 70% of their income to have somewhere to live. In Greenville, we have increasing rates of child homelessness. Just last year, we had 802 children reported in our Greenville County schools. And when you put a face with that child and you realize that is a family from your neighborhood school, I just have to ask myself, how can this happen in Greenville? And this is a family who attends Stone Academy, and they were featured in an exhibit downtown called Through the Eyes of the Homeless. Desmond goes on to tell us that millions now are evicted in our country each year, and the majority of those are mothers with children. And in Greenville County, we have over 38,000 students who are Medicaid eligible this year. So we know we are bottom heavy, but yet we drive around and we see luxury development. And so Greenville has very successfully shifted itself, and that is why the consultant from Alexandria, Virginia said to City Council, any urban planner would have jumped at the chance to work on Greenville. We have made great investments in our quality of life amenities. We value our beautiful parks, and we're very proud of our clean drinking water. We also have shifted our economy to now from a pre-depression textile-centered economy to one today based on knowledge, advanced manufacturing, and services. So when we think about the significant challenges that we face, we know we can solve this as a city because we have solved difficult problems before. All right, there is an African proverb that says, if you want to go faster, go alone. But if you want to go further, go together. And that represents what Russell mentioned. We had a very historic vote taken on January the 9th, and our city council approved setting aside $2 million of local dollars to go into housing. And that is combining with $1 million coming forward from the community. My church has stepped forward with a $100,000 gift towards this $1 million. We've also had a Sunday school class from Buncombe Street since January 9th come forward with a donation. This is being combined into a new entity, a public-private partnership, a new way for Greenville to address housing, and it will be a housing trust fund. City Council also approved the recommendations in the steering committee report, and this $3 million will be split and immediately address rent subsidies. As we know, we are losing about 200 units each year off of our market that are affordable. The other portion of that will help keep people in their existing home with rehabilitation funds. And then $1.5 million will be used to purchase land, as land is an essential part and piece of the housing equation. So we can go further together, and this is connected to our future as a city. And if we fail to ask the question, why does where you live affect you, we will also eventually see that we are suffering and failing as a city. Business expansion and service will suffer, and we can't simply say to someone, just move because you can't afford to live here. That will cause us to fail both economically and morally. So when we think about creating new housing, we know we need to shift our settlement patterns. And I'll leave it on that one. I've recently was given a study by Ansel Sanders, and it details a county in Montgomery County, Maryland, who is one of the oldest and largest programs in our country that has inclusionary zoning. And they've been doing this since the 1950s. And they have a very successful model that shows why this works and how it promotes a healthy city with academic success in students. And we can look at any city in our country and know that residential patterns are closely tied to school enrollment patterns. So I wanted to share a story about someone I love dearly named Shakila, and she lives now in the Green Line Spartanburg neighborhood, which is in the dark green at the top. This is one of our 13 special emphasis neighborhoods in Greenville. And special emphasis neighborhoods are defined as people living there who are in low to moderate income. And when Shakila's neighborhood was built, it was in the 20s, and it was segregated housing that was built at that time. So if you were black and wanted to own or rent a home, you could find one here. And many families were working for families nearby who lived in the Overbrook community. Well, fast forward to 1965, And Title I schools were created due to federal legislation, which was followed then in 1968 by our Fair Housing Act. Fast forward to today, and East North Street, which is her neighborhood school, continues to be a Title I school. This is a view from looking up from where her house is up the street. And we can see that having a policy like Montgomery could really be beneficial to Greenville now that we know what our challenges are. So I wanted to point out the aspects that stood out in that county. And the first is that by having students in poverty spread among the vast who are not in poverty, they have achieved academic success, and they have 9 out of 10 students graduating, one of the best rates in our country. And they are still one of the most affluent counties in our country. So placing those families, again, throughout the counties, provided a supply of workers for their low-wage jobs. And finally, that didn't stem poverty in any one area of the county, which kept it to be a very safe, healthy, vibrant community. Now, I came to meet Shakila when she was 5. She was attending Stone Academy at the time, and I was matched with her to be her mentor through Mentor Upstate. And she really enjoyed reading, and so I quickly realized that, and I was so proud of her. By the end of 1st grade, she was reading a full grade level ahead. And then around that time, her family moved, and they had been in an apartment in the Hampton-Pinckney area, and they moved into this beautiful, quality, subsidized 3-bedroom home here in the Green Line Spartanburg community. And I noticed once she started at East North Street, things started to struggle, and her reading was falling behind. And by the end of 3rd grade, she was now reading a full grade level behind. So I asked myself, how does this happen when a child like Shakila moves from a lower poverty school into a higher poverty school that's literally about a mile, apart? And so I wanted to share some numbers with you on some of our statistics in Greenville. At Stone, you have 33% who are in poverty. That's compared to 79% at East North Street. Stone has 66% meeting or exceeding expectations in English, and East North Street has 44%. Now you compare to non-magnet schools, because these are both magnet, and you take Hollis, which has 93% in poverty, and they have 30% who meet or exceed expectations in English. And then you contrast that with Monarch, where there's 20% in poverty and 77% who are meeting or exceeding expectations in English. So this is the key for Greenville to take the next big step forward. And I wanted to point out, though, a few more things in Shakila's neighborhood that are positive and that are happening there. It is going through revitalization, and the city has invested about $1 million in infrastructure work, which has provided things like safe drinking water, new lines, and also lights and street curbage. This is an example of a gain home that's at the end of her street, and that is a solar-powered home, and a family who has emerged from being homeless lives there. Next door is workforce housing. That is a partnership between Genesis Homes and Rick Quinn with Quinn Satterfield Builders. So this also demonstrates our housing challenges are most significant for this $20,000 and under annually, but extend all the way up to our teachers, our police officers, and military. So this is a positive thing that's happening in this neighborhood. I wanted to share, though, that last fall I did stand in the kitchen of her home with her mother, and she shared a difficult conversation with me where she has a brother who's 16, and he had come home and brought a gun into their home. And she said that he really just wanted to protect himself. We had talked many times about that he'd been experiencing gangs who were threatening him since they moved into this community. And he also wanted to protect his family. So revitalization takes time. Changing poverty levels in schools takes time. But there's also an element of safety that is important for families as well as our broader community. When poverty is concentrated, we have those side effects. So where you live affects your life, your health, and your education. I wanted to go back into my neighborhood. This is in the North Main area, and this is a rental around the corner from our house on Bennett Street. And it's being offered at $1,100 a month, which is twice the rate of the affordable units in Shakila's neighborhood. Families are moving into the Stone area so that their children can attend the school, and the North Main community has become a very coveted place to live at this proximity to downtown. So Stone has seen a decrease in their free and reduced lunch students, in their African American students, and in their magnet enrollment, because it's somewhere people want to move and live. All right, so we know 87% agreed we have a problem. You all being here tonight is a wonderful reflection of that. 68% agreed we should not have poverty concentrated in Greenville. Yet only 9% said, yes, I would welcome a mixed income unit in my backyard. So when we can move as a city from saying no to saying yes in my backyard, we can go from being good to being great. And this is the key to our economic stability and vitality in the long run. So I'm going to ask you tonight, be courageous and think green. And when you do, picture this. And I did tell you as a textile designer, not a graphic designer, but hopefully you'll see the smiley face in here and smile. Imagine that all these colors fade except for the green dots, and then that becomes affordable homes spread throughout our community. And then have a very courageous, open conversation with a friend, with a family member, or a coworker about why where you live affects you and your community. And then I want you to leave here with a challenge. Find one person, just one person, who does not value a home to go to at the end of their day. And when you do ask this question, you will be speaking for those in our community who are most vulnerable, those who have no resources, no power, no status, and may not even have a home. And when you do this, you will also significantly change the outcome of their lives, and you will help Greenville write a new and equitable history for, yeah, that Greenville.